People's Platform.
Good evening. This is the People's Platform. I'm so pleased to invite yet again to our studio Dr. Ajantha Perera, environmental scientist and human rights advocate, to discuss justice deficits. Good evening and welcome, Dr. Ajantha.
Thank you. So nice to be with you.
And with you. Dr. Ajantha, you are someone who utilizes your freedom of assembly, freedom of expression. These days we see you on the streets a lot, protesting against several issues.
Yes.
Speak to us about what's going on.
Yeah, basically I am a firm believer the right to speak. I love the Constitution. So I want to live by that Constitution because I think we need to be like a role model for other people, you know, because a lot of people are not so sure as to what they can do. So very few, you know, most of the women, very especially I should say, you know, they're a bit worried about getting on the street and protesting. They're worried about what the police could do to them. And they're worried about tarnishing their name and all those things. But I'm a firm believer that what the Constitution gives you as freedom to speak, you need to speak. Because you see, no other animal in this world can speak. I mean, no elephant can speak, no dog can speak, no rabbit can speak, but human beings have been given the privilege to speak and to take decisions. And I think living in a country, if you don't speak, if you don't raise your voice, if you don't give your opinion, right? What's the use of your life? I mean, you know, you just live and you let everything happen to you. And then at the end of the day, you say, oh my goodness, you know, everything is so terrible, everything is so bad. But there's a lot you can do because you are you, you're unique. And I believe you're born for a purpose. And I firmly believe in that statement. You're born for a purpose, and sometimes you're born to help other people by your words. And that's why I speak and I protest, and I love protesting, not just for the sake of protesting, but I want the country to be moved in a particular direction. You see, there is a Bible verse which I really love, and that says, the justice should flow through the land like a river. And I imagine that river of justice flowing through Sri Lanka, because Sri Lankans have never known what justice is. You know, they have always been suppressed through corruption, lies, pretense. You know, especially this year now, it's been an election year, there's going to be a lot of people standing on platforms and saying all sorts of things to people. And they especially believe that women are very stupid. I mean, this is the way they look at it. I mean, just look at most of the meetings. It's full of women. You know, they bring women and give them promises. And I saw the president very recently telling a whole heap of people at Kuliapitiya that he's going to give 20 kilos of rice per family. 20 kilos of rice? I mean, where does he get the money from? That's for all the people of Aswasuma. So, for him to spend that money, 20 kilos of rice per family, and that's about 2 million people, where is he going to get the money from? So, you need to understand, and then if you know by calculation that it cannot happen, then you need to say it out loud, because the reason being, some of the people actually believe that. I mean, they'll think that it's just coming from somewhere. Well, he is able to give it. I mean, maybe India may have promised him, another country may have promised him. But for a president to say that, you know, you look behind who the person is. And you don't expect a president to say that, because that shows he's a politician. He's not a leader. A leader would never ever promise people huge packages just to get a vote. A leader would never ever do that. We look at Mahatma Gandhi, we look at Nelson Mandela, we look at Margaret Thatcher. Those people never promise people food just to get a vote. You know, politicians do, but leaders never do that. So you need to talk, you need to explain these things to the people so they can make the right decisions.
So you said we need to move beyond passivity and this culture of being beholden unto this
Exactly.
culture of the Batpakat and Araku Kala. But
Exactly.
we're saying this to a people who are in hunger.
Yeah.
So how does that work, Dr.
Yeah,
Ajantha?
it's. I think Sri Lanka. See what the leaders of this nation has done is they've driven the country to in such a way that people are in poverty. People have been made helpless, so that when the people are helpless, they are able to give them things in order to make them happy. You see, a true leader would lift up the people to his level so he can work with the people.
Yeah.
A person who is a dictator, who's going to use people, what he or she does is to bring the people lower so that people has to look up to him. Like looking up to God, they have to look up to him, expect things to be dropped from above. You see, that's what the politicians have done to the people of this country. And the people themselves have accepted it up to now. You know, and today when you talk to the people on the roadside and when we talk about the elections or even for that matter meetings, most of the people are saying we might get something. They're expecting something from the leader, you know, they're expecting something from the so-called leaders. And so we need to tell them this is only short term. There is something called short term, there is something called long term. And an intelligent person, a human being should never ever think short term. Short term happiness is only for a little while. You are happy, you've eaten the bath packet, you drunk your alcohol, and then you had a good singing, and that's the end of it. But a long term, you know, you make sure that your children can go to school, you can get a job, your husband can get a job, you have a little family, you can afford things and you develop a family, and you know for sure that you are stable in that country. So short term and long term. Politicians often give short-term solutions. But leaders, people who care about the people, who would go to any extent for the people, leaders, they only give long-term solutions.
Dr. Ajantha, women are disproportionately impacted when there are justice deficits. Let's speak about this aspect because this is quite dangerous.
Yeah, the women at the moment, I think in this country, they're going through one of the worst scenarios that they can go through because they are being, you know, even though you're a woman, you know, you depend on either your husband's salary or you earn your own money. And you need to now divide it, you know, accordingly to whether it's for the education of the child, whether it's for medicine, whether it's for transport, whether it's for the household electricity bills or water bills and so on. So a woman is always very much pressurized right now because the amount of money they have in the hand is so little, and then they go shopping to buy vegetables and it's so expensive, and most of the time the vegetables are also of not good quality, you know, and then they come home, they have to cook and they have to do all these, the gas prices, and then eventually the woman is so suppressed through that she does not think of herself. She does not have time to think of herself. And so in a situation like that, it's such a desperate situation. And I think this is why also one reason why a lot of the women are now protesting more than the men. If you look at our group who are protesting out on the streets on Thursdays or Sundays, you know, we see more women coming and holding the board because they are being affected, you know, they worry about the future because they have only two options, either to live in this country and, you know, make sure that everything is okay and divide whatever you have so that you can live, or you go abroad. And look at the women who go abroad. You know, I mean, they have to leave their little children here and then they go abroad, and by the time they come back, they may have to face very drastic situations, you know. And then we also have people here today, women, you know, they are forced to work. You know, whether they like to, whether they do not like to, they have to work. So women today are being really pressurized, and I think in a way it's a good thing, because right now they must take right decisions in voting. This is an election year. The women should learn how to vote. They need not listen to their husband. They need not vote for the person whom their husband is voting for. Think of your children and vote. Don't think of yourself and vote. You know, now it has come to a situation the women must always listen with your ears, but think with your brain. Somebody might come to your doorstep and say, I'll get you a job if you give me your vote. Right? But the woman must always remember, these people will always come and say things which they cannot keep. Keep that promise, you know, after the election is over. We've seen this again and again. So the mothers, I particularly speak to the mothers, you know, think of your children when you're voting. Talk to your children before you go to the polling station to vote, because children are smarter than us. They can think long term, and you don't necessarily have to listen to your husband. Because husband may be talking to his friends and, you know, and then deciding on a certain thing. There are certain people, you know, who say, I'll only vote for blue or green or red or whatever. But the women need to think very smart these days, and that's why we need to empower them. Unfortunately, we don't have a good minister for women affairs. Geeta Kumarasinghe is a beautiful actress. I admire her talents as an actress, but I do not admire her talents at all as a Minister for Women's Affairs. I mean, the statement she made, you know, recently for the Women's Day, she was saying, you know, the president really likes women. The president will always make sure that the women are looked after. My goodness me, she is the woman. She needs to be in the forefront saying, look, women are really suffering. Let's try to find them good jobs. Let's give them, you know, small amount of money so that they can start their own, you know, work. I remember when I was fighting for the electricity bill recently, I was in a Public Utilities Commission. They shouted at me. They were very annoyed with me because I said, reduce the electricity bill so that people can afford to start cottage industries. You know, women can sew, they can cook something, you know, and those things are possible only when they can afford the electricity bill. So Geeta Kumarasinghe should be thinking of this far more, because so many women, I mean, every day when I go to the airport, I see so many hundreds of women leaving the country, and they have tears in their eyes. They're going not with joy, they're going with a lot of pain and tears, you know, and they don't want to leave their children behind. And the Minister for Women's Affairs should be there at the airport. You know, she should have an office in the airport to take care of the women who are actually traveling out. You know, what is the hope they have? I mean, I sometimes believe that the women are left, you know, I mean, maybe we should have next time a man to be the Minister for Women's Affairs. Maybe he'll do a better job. Because if you have a woman who does not understand women, maybe because of their ability to afford things, you know, different to what the average woman can do, we are having a very bad situation right now in the country.
Dr. Ajantha, what are the gaps you see in terms of the work that the Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs can do? Mm-hmm. What is not being done? What are the gaps?
Okay. The first thing is, you know, that most of the women who are at home, who are not working, but they take their children to school.
Yeah.
And then when they go to school, they can't really afford the transport back home and then go back again. So they hang around near the schools. And now, you know, if you can set up a center where they are being trained on some kind of a work, you know,
sure,
where they can learn something, where they can have a discussion. So what the ministers, the Women's Affairs Ministry can do is to set up centers. There are churches close by, there are temples close by, there are mosques close by, there are community centers close by. So what they can do is to set up these places where they can have dialogues, they can learn something, to make bake cakes, sewing, learning a new language, learning English, for example. So they're not wasting their time.
Of course.
You know, catch them where you can and teach them and enable them. And then you provide them with a small amount of money to start something off, you know. And there are so many. Now, I myself, I remember I took away a few years because I wanted to take care of my children. And I was, as an educated, a PhD holder, I didn't want to work because of my children. So during that time, you know, I could give tuition. If I am a graduate, I can give tuition, you know, that kind of a thing. So encourage the women to do that kind of honorable jobs. Don't show, you know, throw them into spa, or don't throw them into going abroad, you know. It's so important. That's why I say the Ministry for Women's Affairs can do so much. And at the same time, let's look at the farming community. You know, the women who are farming, you know, they have their needs. They're worried about their family income. So, you know, giving them the right seeds, you know, that's not a hard job to do. You can easily get hold of the members of the local authority, like the Pradeshya Sabha, maybe the municipal council, get them to go and teach the women on how to select the best seeds. And now today you have also the genetically modified seeds which are drought resistant. And the climate change is happening, and so they can utilize those. There are several seeds which you can plant which do not need much water. You can teach them on sprinklers, you can teach them on rainwater harvesting, you can teach them on drip irrigation. There's 1,000 things you can teach the farming women.
Yeah.
And they're longing for these things.
Of course.
You know, and then you go to the tea plantations, the women who are plucking tea leaves. You know, look at their hands. They've given us 200 years of their life. What have we given to the plantation sector? Zero, zero, and zero again. Right? And so, why don't you teach those women how to take care of themselves? Make them happy for a little while, and you can send them to the line, you know, their housing, line housing, and you have programs. And I know there are a lot of religious institutions who go there and teach them a little bit of English. Why not? So that they would feel better. And these are the things that the Women's Affairs Ministry should do.
Sure. We are in conversation with Dr. Ajantha Perera. We're going for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
The People's Platform. TV1. TV for life. 6 murdered and 6 injured in shootings that occurred during the past 24 hours. Yuktiya continues. New program to reintegrate arrested suspects into society. Groundbreaking ceremony of the business center of Colombo Port City held today. Sri Lanka and China standard agencies sign MOU. Another Chinese research vessel lurks off the shores of India. University non-academic staff to go on strike over salary anomalies. Health professionals stage protest at several locations. TV1. TV for life. The People's Platform.
Welcome back. You're watching The People's Platform. I'm in conversation with Dr. Ajantha Perera. Dr. Ajantha, when we speak about justice deficits and how they disproportionately impact women, we must talk about unregulated sex work. Because what happens is we don't recognize this. We act like this isn't going on. So these women go through legal vulnerability. arrest, prosecution, harassment. Then stigma and discrimination, violence and abuse, health risks, economic exploitation. Every 200 meters around Talawatugoda, Battaramulla area, for example, there are spas on either side of the road, and they are all packed. And we still act in denial. So speak to us about how dangerous this is for Sri Lanka's women. We have a responsibility and a duty to look after these women, their health, their well-being, their legal protection. We have to guarantee that.
Yes, I think number one, I think we need to understand as to why it's happening. Why is the big question? Why are they going to the spas? Why are they working in the spa? Basically, some of the reasons may be that they don't even know why they actually went there to work. Because if you really look at it, the spa, the word spa itself has this, this thing about, people go there in order to, because they can afford things. You go for a massage or whatever it is. Most of the women may have gone there because they just got a job. They have the ability to get some money. But the worst scenario is once they are inside there and they, when they are being pressurized, automatically they don't have any other option. So one of the worst things that a woman feels is humiliation. When a woman feels that, I have done something wrong, or whether when I am doing something wrong and that the community does not accept, they tend to hide themselves. They tend to have a covering around them. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to approach anyone. They want to be isolated because they automatically think that the society rejects them. So with that, they have a very hard time of how to cope with the situation. Now, if you really look at spas, which are, coming up everywhere, like what you said, what's going on inside there? Nobody knows because they're all covered and no one can actually see anything from outside. And this makes the women who actually go there, it's a scary life for them. They cannot talk about it. They cannot say that I work in a spa. Nobody would say that. So we who are outside needs to actually make sure that they are safe inside. One of the things that the government should do, and this is again I'm turning back to the Ministry for Women's Affairs.
Okay.
What they need to do is they need to register all the places which are coming up as spa. Because we do not know what exactly is going on there. And then you need to go and register. You don't need to register the women who are actually there, but you need to register the owner. You need to get the details as to what is actually going on there. And then also, another thing is, if you are not doing anything beyond a massage parlor or something like that, you could easily have glass panels where you can actually see at least the lobby area, so that people don't look down at that place. So when you see a woman walking into a spa, that they are not looked down at, thinking, oh, what is she going there for? I think those are some of the precautions. Second thing is the government should always make sure that they go inside and actually get a good know-how as to what's really happening there. We do not know whether they are using even violence. We do not know whether they are using drugs in there. So it's like a secret place. And therefore, the police are always chasing us around when we are on the street side, right? And they are trying to find fault with us, or, they are throwing water or whatever. But they also should be going there. They are the ones who should be going there and asking the owners exactly what's happening in those places. Because the women themselves would not be able to defend themselves. They can't form a association that calls, we are working in a spa or something. So because of that, and another thing is, I think the people who are actually the women, we women also need to give them a hand, because they are feeling lost. they do not know whom to talk to.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, you know, most of the time when they are so down, they do not know whom they can actually discuss whatever the problems that they have. And through that, they can easily get into drugs.
Yeah.
And thereafter, their life is over. I mean, nobody can really help them out. So it's very, very important that we really take up this issue of the spas, because they should be registered, they should be made transparent so that at least in the lobby area so people can see what's happening. And third thing is, it should be accessible so that people could at least find out exactly whether the women are safe in there. And then, if there are women who are actually working there and they do not need medical help, that medical help should also be provided for them. You see, some of the women who may be needing money and they do not want to leave their children in Sri Lanka and go to another country, they might be working in these places. And the worst scenario that I find is that the university students who are not having much money. I mean, I have seen young girls coming to supermarkets and buying, you know, they are buying 2 potatoes, 1 onion, a little bit of rice, because that's all they can cook. You know, and what are we doing about these children? And when these children come on this roadside and protest by saying, we need good lecturers, we need adequate lecturers, we need to pass our exams, we want to finish our degree on time, what do they get? Water cannons being fired at them. And they are being, you know, sprayed with tear gas. I mean, is that what a country does? I mean, just because somebody is 18, somebody is 19, somebody is 20, they have the inner strength to voice out what they feel. I mean, are they to be met with water cannons? Are they to be met with tear gas? Is that what the so-called politicians of our country can think of? Why do the politicians always consider the young people as the oppressors or the ones who are against the government? They are not. They are the next leaders. And if you really look at the figures, now the Sri Lankan debt is 83.6 billion American dollars. 83.6 billion American dollars we are in debt. And now when the IMF loans also come, it's going to increase, right? Who's going to pay them? Who's going to pay the debt? Now Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe has said 2027 to 2042 is the period when that debt is going to be paid. Who's going to pay it? The young children of today. The youth of today will have to pay the debt, not you. You know, you will be there, but I am old, and I may not be there on that time to repay the debt. So the young children of this country have every right to fight. And if I was 18 or 19 years old, I would be on top of that water cannon, stopping it. I would be on top of that, tear gas spray, and I'll spray it on other people, those who are trying to suppress the children. Because the reason being, why should I pay for the sins of the elderly people of this country, the leaders of this country who have taken the wrong decisions? So you see, now the statistics say 16.8% of the female students at the schools, they are malnourished. So, I mean, they are worried. They are malnourished, they don't have much money, they don't have a proper education, they do not know when they can finish the degree. And what else can they do? They come on the streets, which is right. But when they come on the street, they are being sprayed with tear gas and water cannons. So at the same time, coming back to the spa story, don't let the women go there. They don't go there for fun. They're going there to earn some money. And the leaders of our nation need to understand that.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. And thank you for having the courage to care. Thank you, Dr. Ajantha.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you very much for watching us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.